There are moments in life when the ground beneath your feet feels unsure, when effort meets silence, and hope feels heavier than despair. In those moments, faith is not loud. It does not announce itself. It waits. Quiet. Enduring. Often misunderstood. This is not a story about instant miracles or easy victories. It is a story about patience when nothing changes, about courage when no one is watching, and about the strength it takes to keep walking when the path offers no answers. This story will show you why true transformation begins not when life rewards you, but when you choose to believe anyway. In a remote valley where the land was dry and the days were long, there lived a shepherd whose life was shaped by waiting, loss, and a faith that refused to disappear. The valley woke slowly each morning, as if it had learned not to expect much from the day. Pale light spilled over the hills, touching the dry grass and scattered stones with a quiet patience. This was where the shepherd lived, not because it was generous, but because it was honest. The land never promised more than it could give. His name mattered little to the valley. He was simply the shepherd. Each dawn, he rose before the birds, wrapped his worn shawl around his shoulders, and stepped into the cool air with steady discipline. His hands knew the weight of the staff. His feet knew every bend of the path. There was comfort in repetition, something grounding in doing the same small things, even when no one was watching. He believed that faith lived in routine. In showing up. In tending what had been placed in your care. While others chased louder dreams in distant towns, he stayed. Not because he lacked ambition, but because he trusted the slow rhythm of effort. He told himself that purpose was not always found by leaving, sometimes it was revealed by remaining. Yet beneath that calm belief, there was a quiet longing. On long afternoons, as his sheep grazed and the wind brushed past like a passing thought, he wondered if this was all there would ever be. Not dissatisfaction, just a gentle ache. The human desire to be certain that your waiting means something. Still, he prayed. Not with grand words or desperate pleas, but with silence. With care. With patience. He believed that if he worked with discipline and held on to faith, life would eventually respond. That the valley, like people, needed time. And maybe that was his greatest strength, and his greatest vulnerability. Because when life is steady, faith feels easy. When the days pass quietly, belief feels natural. The shepherd did not yet know that faith is not proven in calm seasons, but in the moments when everything you trust is tested. For now, the sun rose. The sheep followed. And the shepherd walked forward, unaware that the stillness he relied on was about to break. Seasons began to shift, slowly at first, then all at once. The valley responded to patience the way it always did, quietly, without celebration. The grass grew thicker after rare rains. The sheep multiplied, one lamb at a time, their soft bleats filling the mornings with a gentle music the shepherd had almost forgotten to expect. His discipline started to show. Every careful choice, every early morning, every small act of attention added up. The flock grew healthier. Losses became fewer. Travelers passing through the valley paused longer than before, surprised to see life thriving in a place known for its restraint. Some offered compliments. Others offered trade. The shepherd accepted neither with pride nor suspicion, only with a calm nod, as if this outcome had always been part of the journey. For the first time in many years, his waiting felt justified. With growth came confidence. Not arrogance, but a subtle shift inside his chest. A quiet assurance that perhaps he had understood life correctly after all. That faith, paired with discipline, truly could shape destiny. He began to plan a little further ahead. Count his sheep with care. Imagine seasons not yet lived. The valley no longer felt empty, it felt aligned. In the evenings, as the sun sank behind the hills and painted the sky in soft gold, the shepherd would sit and watch his flock settle. There was peace in those moments. A sense of being in the right place, at the right time. He felt useful. Needed. Anchored by purpose. And slowly, almost without noticing, he began to tie his sense of worth to what he had built. He did not speak this belief aloud, but it lived quietly within him: as long as I do my part, nothing will be taken. His faith, once open and trusting, began to carry expectations. Success had a way of doing that, turning gratitude into assumption. The shepherd still prayed, still walked the same paths, still lived simply. But now, beneath the humility, there was attachment. A belief that growth meant protection. That effort guaranteed safety. The valley, calm and silent, did not correct him. Because life rarely warns us at the peak of our confidence. It waits. It lets us feel secure. It allows success to convince us that we are prepared. And then, when belief has fully settled into certainty, it begins to test what that belief is truly made of. The storm arrived without announcement. One evening, the sky darkened faster than it should have, clouds folding into each other like a quiet warning no one spoke aloud. The wind grew restless. The shepherd felt it before he saw it, a tightening in the air, a heaviness that made the sheep uneasy. By nightfall, rain came hard and cold, beating the valley with unfamiliar force. He did what he always did. Moved the flock to higher ground. Counted heads. Stayed awake longer than his body asked him to. Discipline had never failed him before. But this time, it wasn't enough. The rain did not stop. The ground turned soft, then treacherous. One sheep slipped. Then another. Illness followed the cold, spreading faster than his hands could heal. By morning, the valley that once felt aligned now looked wounded. Silent. Unforgiving. Days passed in a blur of exhaustion and disbelief. Each loss felt unreal, as if the numbers refused to mean what they clearly did. The shepherd buried what he could. Held what he couldn't save. Spoke prayers that felt heavier every time they left his lips. By the end of the season, more than half his flock was gone. The valley did not explain itself. The sky did not apologize. The shepherd sat alone one evening, staring at the empty spaces where life had once gathered. His faith, so steady, so practiced, began to fracture under the weight of unanswered questions. Why now? He wondered. After all the patience. After all the discipline. This was not just loss of animals. It was loss of meaning. Of logic. Of the quiet agreement he believed he had made with life, effort in exchange for protection. Grief settled into his bones. Not loud, not dramatic, but constant. He replayed every decision, every choice, searching for the mistake that must explain the pain. Failure felt personal. Like a verdict. And for the first time, faith did not bring comfort. It brought confusion. The shepherd still woke before dawn. Still walked the valley. But now, each step felt heavier. The staff in his hand no longer symbolized guidance, it felt like something he leaned on to stay upright. This was the moment when belief stopped being theoretical. This was the moment when faith was no longer about routine, but about what remains when routine collapses. And the shepherd was not ready for that question yet. The storm passed, but the shepherd did not move on with it. Days returned to their usual quiet, yet nothing felt familiar. The valley looked the same, but his eyes no longer saw abundance, only absence. Empty spaces where sheep once gathered. Paths that felt too wide. Silence that lingered longer than it should. He told himself the loss was temporary. That with enough effort, enough discipline, things could return to how they were. So he worked harder. Walked longer. Counted the remaining flock again and again, as if numbers might change through will alone. He refused to leave the valley. Refused to imagine a future that looked different from the past. Letting go felt like betrayal. At night, guilt sat beside him like an unwanted companion. He replayed the storm endlessly, what he could have done differently, what he should have seen sooner. He confused reflection with punishment. Rest with weakness. Healing with surrender. Faith, once gentle, became rigid. He prayed the same words each day, not out of trust, but out of desperation. He asked for restoration, not understanding. For reversal, not acceptance. And when nothing changed, frustration hardened inside him. The discipline that once brought peace now kept him trapped. The shepherd stopped listening, to the land, to the rhythm of the seasons, even to himself. He clung to control because it was the only thing that made the loss feel survivable. If he could just hold on tighter, maybe life would return what it had taken. But the valley does not respond to force. The remaining sheep sensed the change. They grew restless. Thin. Not because the land lacked food, but because the shepherd's presence no longer carried calm. Pain has a way of leaking into everything we touch. Inside, he was stuck between what was and what had been. Too wounded to move forward. Too afraid to release the past. He believed this was faith, but it was fear wearing familiar clothes. And so he stayed, emotionally frozen, mistaking stillness for loyalty. Yet denial is not peace. It is a pause before truth. A quiet resistance that delays healing but cannot prevent it. Somewhere beyond the hills, change was already on its way. And when it arrived, it would not ask permission. The stranger appeared one afternoon when the sun hung low and tired, casting long shadows across the valley. He was not announced by noise or urgency, only by movement. A slow figure walking the old path the shepherd had not seen used in years. The shepherd watched from a distance at first. Visitors were rare, and lately, unwelcome. But the man did not ask for food or trade. He simply stopped, rested his hand on a stone, and looked at the land with quiet attention, as if listening to something beneath the surface. "You tend this place like it still owes you something," the stranger said gently, without turning. The words landed heavier than accusation. The shepherd bristled. "I've given my life to this valley," he replied. "If I let go, everything I've done means nothing." The old man finally faced him, eyes calm, unhurried. "No," he said. "It means everything. But meaning does not require possession." They sat together as the evening cooled. The shepherd spoke of the storm, the loss, the discipline that once felt like faith. He expected pity. Or advice. Instead, the old man offered silence, then a single truth. "Faith is not proven when life agrees with you," he said. "It is proven when it doesn't. What you're holding on to is not belief. It's control." The shepherd looked away, unsettled. "If I stop holding on," he whispered, "what's left?" The old man smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but honestly. "You." They parted without ceremony. No promise of return. No dramatic farewell. The stranger continued down the path until the valley swallowed him whole. But the words stayed. That night, the shepherd did not pray for restoration. For the first time since the storm, he asked a different question, not why he lost, but what he was being asked to release. And in that quiet shift, something inside him loosened. Truth rarely arrives with force. It enters softly, through a sentence, a stranger, a moment of honesty you can no longer ignore. The shepherd lay awake beneath the stars, realizing that faith might not be about keeping things unchanged, but about trusting who you become when they are not. The next morning felt unfamiliar, not because the valley had changed, but because the shepherd had. He woke before sunrise as always, yet there was no rush in his movements, no silent bargaining with the day. For the first time in many weeks, he allowed himself to breathe without expectation. He walked the land slowly, not counting sheep, not correcting the past. Just observing. The ground was still uneven. The scars of the storm still visible. But he noticed something else too, small shoots breaking through the soil where nothing had grown before. Life, patient and unbothered by his grief, had continued. So he began with small acts. He repaired an old fence, not to reclaim what was lost, but to care for what remained. He tended the sickest sheep with gentler hands, no longer driven by fear of losing more, but by respect for the life still entrusted to him. Discipline returned, but softer now. Rooted in humility, not control. Each evening, he released something. A memory. A regret. A belief that effort guaranteed safety. Letting go was not dramatic. It was quiet. Often painful. Sometimes incomplete. But it was movement. And with movement came healing. His prayers changed too. They became simpler. Less about outcomes, more about strength. Less about asking, more about listening. Faith no longer felt like a contract, it felt like companionship. Some days were still heavy. Grief does not vanish just because understanding arrives. But the shepherd no longer fought those days. He allowed them to pass, trusting that they were part of the journey, not evidence of failure. Slowly, something inside him softened. The valley seemed to respond, not with sudden abundance, but with balance. The sheep grew calmer. The land steadied. The silence no longer accused him, it accompanied him. Rebirth rarely announces itself. It begins in unnoticed choices. In the decision to care without clinging. To walk forward without certainty. The shepherd did not know what the future would bring. But for the first time since the storm, he no longer needed to. Faith, he realized, was not about holding life together, it was about trusting yourself to remain whole when it changes. Time passed, not as an enemy, but as a quiet companion. The valley moved through its seasons with the same steady rhythm it always had, yet the shepherd now walked within it differently. He no longer measured his days by what increased or disappeared. He measured them by how fully he showed up. The flock was smaller than before, and strangely, it felt right. Each sheep was known, not counted. Each path was familiar, not forced. The shepherd's movements carried ease again, not the confidence of certainty, but the peace of acceptance. He had stopped asking life to return what it had taken. Instead, he asked himself a gentler question: who am I becoming through this? Purpose revealed itself quietly. It was there in the mornings when he greeted the day without resentment. In the afternoons when he rested without guilt. In the evenings when he watched the sun sink behind the hills and felt gratitude, not because everything was perfect, but because he was present. Faith no longer demanded proof. It no longer needed success to justify itself. It lived in trust. In resilience. In the courage to continue without guarantees. The valley reflected this change. Not through abundance, but through harmony. Loss and life coexisted without conflict. Silence no longer felt like punishment, it felt like space. Sometimes travelers passed through again. They noticed the shepherd's calm and lingered longer than expected. A few asked him how he endured such a simple life after losing so much. He never gave long answers. Only this: I stayed. And in that staying, he had discovered something deeper than growth: wholeness. The storm had taken much. But it had not taken his ability to choose peace. Failure had visited him, but it had not defined him. Letting go had not emptied him, it had made room. As dawn broke one morning, soft and golden, the shepherd stood still and felt no urge to rush forward or look back. He was exactly where he needed to be. Transformation, he realized, is not becoming someone new. It is remembering who you were before fear taught you to cling. And in that remembrance, the shepherd found a faith that could endure anything. Every life carries a valley like this one. A place where effort is tested. Where faith is stretched. Where failure arrives without explanation. And like the shepherd, you may discover that the hardest part of the journey is not the loss itself, but what it asks you to release. This story leaves us with quiet truths worth carrying. First, faith is not proven when life rewards you, but when it remains steady in silence. Second, discipline without humility becomes control, and control cannot protect you from change. Third, failure is not a sign you believed wrong, it is often proof that belief is being refined. Fourth, letting go is not weakness, it is courage in its most honest form. Fifth, healing does not erase pain, but it teaches you how to walk with it. Sixth, purpose is not always found in growth, but in presence. And finally, rebirth does not mean starting over, it means continuing with wisdom. If you are standing in a season where nothing makes sense, if your effort feels unseen, if your faith feels tired, remember the shepherd. He did not escape the storm. He did not receive back what was lost. But he endured, and in enduring, he found peace. Your journey may not give you what you expected, but it can still give you strength, clarity, and a deeper kind of hope. If this story spoke to you, take a moment to sit with it. And when you're ready, share it with someone who might be walking their own quiet valley. Because sometimes, the most powerful faith is simply choosing to keep going.